steps to a six steps to a successful wholesaling business. Now, the only change is if you could, just to give us continuity, Duncan and I will be talking back and forth as we go over the 6 steps to wholesaling. But if you have a question, it would be better if you could post it in the chat, either raise your hand or post a question, because we'll come and do that at the end. The 5th step will be why successful wholesalers actually focus on bank-owned property, which is our preferred way to buy. And then once I'm done, we've gone through the entire seminar. Then I'm going to take questions for as long as we have before Duncan says we've hit our time limit. So I will hopefully, if I've timed this out right, everybody, we'll have between 15 and 30 minutes for your questions at the end. So let's get started. So the bonus we're going to give is 10 ways to buy low. This is a product where we give an overview of 10 different ways that investors can focus to find discount properties. This is a particularly interesting bonus for wholesalers. Why? We will teach you how to wholesale. But one thing you need to determine for yourself is what is going to be your preferred acquisition method. And most successful wholesalers they focus on primarily 1 or 2 ways to acquire discount property. We'll give you an overview of 10, and you can pick which of the strategies are the best fit for you. All right, so my company is Regular Riches. We picked this name because, other than the fact that my real estate partner, Scott, and I are shorter than most people, we're just a couple of regular guys. And if we can do it, so can you. We didn't start off with a bunch of money from mom and dad. We started off with, like a lot of people, got out of college, had a bit of time and energy, and we said, I don't like where my day job is taking me. I need to supplement that. And real estate was that vehicle. Our model is called buy low, rent smart, and sell high. All right. Now, if you're not new to the REIA meetings, you notice that every now and then the good REIAs like Duncan's will invite a guru. So what sets me apart, among other things, is that the model that we teach around the country was actually featured by Fortune magazine among the top 5 wealth-building models for real estate investors. So we're pretty proud of that. And hopefully in the next hour or so, you'll figure out why our model was profiled. So I want to start off with our student's stories, and it's a pretty powerful story. Hans van der Kolk grew up in the Netherlands, and his dream was to emigrate to the United States and become an entrepreneur. Well, he landed everybody with $300 in his pocket, and I met him 5 years later. Hans was buried in a full-time job. He had an American wife, 2 little American citizens, and really did not like where he was. We became friends, and I taught him my investment model. He ignored my advice to start slow, and he purchased 6 properties with the money he made with his part-time investing in just 2 years. The reason why this is such a powerful story, everybody, is because when we were interviewed by Fortune magazine years ago, they said, your model sounds almost too good to be true. Give us the names of people other than you who are doing this. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is before I was traveling the country and teaching and doing seminars and webinars. I had 1 student. So we gave Hans's name to Fortune magazine. They flew to Florida. They looked at all his properties. And a couple months later, in the article of the newspaper edition that featured real estate strategies, I didn't get my picture in the paper, but Hans's picture was there. And that's what led me to start to teach around the country, because once we got that exposure, we started getting invitations from groups like Duncan's to come and teach around the country. But because this story was so powerful, and we had a student who's featured in Fortune magazine using our model, every seminar I do, I start with his story, and I challenge all of those in the room or online to be the next Hans. that if I'm interviewed by the New York Times or Wall Street Journal 2 or 3 months in the future, and they say, give me somebody in New England who has taken your model and made it work, let it be somebody in Duncan's REIA. There's no reason, everybody, why it can't be you. So a little bit about my story. So shortly after college, I moved up to Atlanta, Georgia to seek my fortune in the business world. I got a job with a company called Global Marketing Associates. And my title was International Logistics Coordinator. It was a very fancy title, but all I did was I sat at my desk for 10, 11 hours a day, and I made phone calls and I sent faxes and telexes. And I was responsible for logistics of picking up loads of frozen poultry from poultry plants in the Southeast, trucking the poultry to ports, reloading the poultry onto these seaworthy containers and shipping the containers to Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, my job sucked. I didn't like where I was going in life. I met this guy named Scott. We pulled our money together and we bought this super flawed property you see here with literally a downward sloping driveway. Literally, a 30-degree downward sloping driveway. You couldn't even see the home from the street. That's how deep the slope was. About a year later, we bought another property. Then we bought another property. And then this first property sold on a lease purchase. And we began to buy properties at a much, much faster pace. And one of the exciting things about our story is once we acquired enough properties, as these properties sold, the cash we needed for additional properties came from the properties we already owned. So I'd like to share this picture here because you can see a very flawed property. And we bought this property, and we love properties with flaws because the flawed properties can often present the greater discounts and make the most money for investors. So let's get started. All right, today we're going to focus on wholesaling. So we give 6 steps to being a successful wholesaler. And what we're going to cover now is also the 6 steps we have in our wholesaling course. Now, if you're reading the screen, you see that we've actually got 7 steps here because there's a 5A and 5B. But wholesaling is actually not complicated, everybody. And I've gone through other course materials, and frankly, sometimes I get a headache reading about it because many make wholesaling out to be complicated. It's actually pretty easy. And if you can master these 7 steps, you should be successful as a wholesaler. So why is wholesaling so appealing to so many investors? Well, I've been teaching everybody almost for 2 decades. And when I go and I teach live, I ask for a show of hands. How many of you are seasoned investors? How many of you just starting out? How many of you are intermediate investors? How many of you are just getting started? You haven't bought any properties yet, and you're going to start as a wholesaler. And typically, everybody, between 30 and 40% of the real estate investors, both active and would-be investors in any room, raise their hands that they are looking to wholesale. Wow. Why is that number so big? Well, because many investors, many people who want to make money in real estate, they've got some time, they've got the energy, but they're lacking the cash or the credit. And what's appealing about wholesaling is you can start today if you have no cash and no credit, as long as you've got a good business plan. So a lot of investors are in that situation to get started, which is why the appeal of wholesaling is arguably the most attractive startup strategy available to real estate investors. So let's start with getting started. Step number 1. You wholesalers have to pick an acquisition strategy, at most 2, and focus on perfecting these strategies. Let's have a look at one investor who doesn't have a good acquisition strategy.
Oh, hello, ma'am. I'm so sorry to disturb you, but I'm an investor, and I was wondering if you would consider selling me your home for 40% below market. Would you consider 30%? There's got to be an easier way to buy low.
Oh boy. Well, when I'm live, everybody, I ask for a show of hands. All investors, raise your hands if you think it's difficult to buy homes below market. And all the new investors raise their hands. And I say, no, it's not. It's not difficult. It's actually easy. You want something difficult, try getting a 2-year-old to act on cue for 5 seconds. That's difficult. And you've all just met my daughter, Lily Rose, who now today is a 19-year-old freshman in college. So getting serious, everybody. There are many ways to buy property below market, but you wholesalers have to pick one, no more than two, and perfect them. You can see in that video, while it's a joke, all right, many investors desire to wholesale, but they haven't got a strategy or a method to acquire property below market. Our favorite is REOs, bank-owned property. And we'll come back to this in about 15 or 20 minutes as to why this is our favorite. But all of you wholesalers have to pick one or two. That brings back our free product. The 10 ways to buy low. Duncan will give this to you at the conclusion of our seminar today. If you're truly new to real estate, this product will give you a very high-level overview of 10 of the most common acquisition strategies for buying property below market. Your job, if you're new to real estate, is to go over this product and to pick the one or two that are the best fit for you and focus on buying property below market that way. All right? And Duncan, as I said earlier, as I start going through these steps, you have a question or whatever, please feel free to unmute yourself and you and I can collaborate back and forth. Anybody else has a question, post it in the chat, because once I'm done, there'll be a chance for every question, or hopefully most questions, to be answered. So why now? Well, right now, in many parts of the country, real estate values are elevated. So an investor might look at this and say, you know, I don't see a lot of deals there. Well, everybody remembers, and even if you're younger, maybe you read about the Great Recession. What happened in the Great Recession? The Great Recession can also be called a real estate reset. And this reset occurred in August of 2008. And after the Great Recession, New England, depending on the part of the country, investors were able to acquire property below market between 30 and 50% below market for 2 or 3 years. Let me simplify that. After the Great Recession, there was a real estate sale for investors who were ready. Now, the Great Recession didn't just happen. There were signs that reset was coming. And the number one sign that a reset is coming soon or in the future is when homeowners begin to get behind in their mortgage. What you're looking at right now takes the first quarter of 2024 compared to the first quarter of 2023. In that year, the 60-day delinquency rate increased 11%. Foreclosure starts are up 23%. There's a word for what this is, everybody. It's called a leading indicator. So those of you who are investors, this figure should get you excited because it says this is a great time right now, if you want to be a wholesaler, to get your business ready, because it could be that in the near future, this reset will come, followed by a real estate sale. What
Andy,
do rich
I'm just going to interrupt here very quickly. If I mean, this has been talked about in the last week, is that there's 63 banks that are in dire straits and are very close to being taken back by the FDIC. Basically, the bank is bankrupt. So, and why is that? Because they've written some bad loans. They've, have all this inventory they're not getting rid of. So, when you mentioned real estate owned as a source, uh, wow, it's basically sitting there in your face. Be prepared. The great thing about I've always been this how do I acquire stuff guy is like what's the best way to find it. Going to 63 banks and asking for bank a list of bank assets versus sending out I don't know, maybe 10,000 letters sure makes it way easier job than that. And I've always been a big online guy, and even though it's you can use even AI now to predict where to shop, who's in default, where to get leads. There is a cost to that, and at the same time, a lot of people who use these lead services really, they're still sending out letters or postcards to bring the leads to them. So as a real estate investor, stay ahead of people. You really got to attack, and look, attacking the market by doing your postcards. Great, you're doing something than anybody else. But I kind of like the idea. It's like, wow, 63 banks in trouble. I need leads. I need inventory to go out and wholesale. That's already taken back. Why not? Yeah, that's a great lead source, Andy.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going now speaking maybe a little bit early to what a slide we're going to get to in a bit where we talk about sourcing. Our model is based on buying bank-owned property. I do wholesale, everybody, but when I don't wholesale, I focus on buying bank-owned property. When I wholesale, I buy bank-owned. And I buy bank-owned for a lot of the reasons that Duncan mentions right now is it's absolutely the easiest way to buy property below market. And when you're buying from a bank, it's a business transaction. All right. You don't have to deal with human emotion. And a big part, what is wholesaling, everybody? Wholesaling is transaction-based investing. What I mean by that is the successful wholesaler who is really running a business is doing 6 or 7 of these deals a month. So if you're doing 6 or 7 deals a month and you have a bad ratio, you have to look at 20 properties to buy one, you're not going to have enough time in that month to make your business work. Unless you're buying from a bank that has multiple properties from single sources. So many of you may have heard that wholesalers can't buy from banks. You're wrong, and I'm going to get there in a bit. So the next step in the process is finding buyers, finding people who've got money. And this is where wholesalers really struggle. How do you find people with money? All right, now, I'm not going to give this full tip now, but I'm going to point out one letter in the slide. You notice it says finding buyers, not buyer. Why is that important? To the wholesaler who fails, you give me a wholesaler, somebody who wants to be a wholesaler, who doesn't succeed, and I will show you almost all of them had a buyer lined up and the buyer flaked. Okay? Now, one of the ways you can conduct a successful business where that doesn't happen is that you are finding multiple buyers. Most successful wholesalers have 2 or 3 buyers for every type of property they are looking to source. Why? Let me give you an example. So I'm a successful wholesaler, and I go and I meet with Sarah. Sarah Abraham, she is a buyer of middle-income properties in Greater Boston. Now, I also go to Kelly. Kelly is also a successful investor who is looking for middle-income properties in Greater Boston. So now I'm ready to wholesale and look for middle-income properties in Greater Boston because I've got two buyers. I go and find a property. I get the seller to approve my offer. I go to Sarah. Hey, Sarah, I got a property that's perfect for you. And Sarah says, I'm so sorry, Andy. I just bought a property last week and I'm off the market right now. The wholesaler who has only one buyer is now stuck because they have to go back to their seller and they're going to lose credibility, but not you. You pick up the phone, you dial 1-800-KELLY, and you say, hey, Kelly, I've got a property for you. And Kelly says, great, I'm still in the market. And you're succeeding because of this step. You didn't start your sourcing for properties until you had 2, ideally 3 potential buyers for every type of property that you are looking to source. Now, when we put together our wholesale course, we studied what other educators are offering. This next step, I have never seen it in any other course. And I will go so far as to say it's probably your most important step. This is the wholesalee or the investor interview. So let's go back to my example. My 2 investors are Sarah and Kelly. I am Andy, the wholesaler. I don't have any money. All right. Now, when I go and I meet with Sarah, I found Sarah. All right. And then I say, hey, Sarah, let's, you got some time next week. I'd like to meet you at Starbucks. I'm going to buy you a $20 cup of coffee. She says, sure. Who doesn't want a free coffee? So we meet there and I am going to interview her. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a second. The person with no money is interviewing the person with money? Yes. I'm going to be asking questions like, hi, Sarah. I need to understand what types of properties you're interested in buying. I need to understand what areas that you're looking to buy. Sarah, I'm a wholesaler. I don't have funds. I'm going to find funds for you. All right? But Sarah, I need you to provide me proof of funds. Holy smokes. Let's stop right there. Somebody's going to say, wait a second, that's invasive. Of course it's invasive. But why am I going to exert time to look for property and come and find Sarah doesn't have proof of funds? Because she's going to be the one to provide the proof of funds because I am a wholesaler. So the wholesalee, everybody, is accomplishing a number of things. Okay? It's going to help you identify who the real investors are from those that are pretending. So you're not out there looking for an investor who can't close. But there's another thing. What is an important quality? Let me rephrase this. Why would an investor be interested in working with the wholesaler? The reason? There is only one reason. The utilization of a successful wholesaler saves an investor time. They're lazy. They want Andy to do the digging and the dirty work. Well, Sarah sits back and makes a lot of the money. So what you're also doing by interviewing the wholesalee, the investor, is you're selling yourself. Because Sarah and Kelly are going to say to themselves, I have never met with a wholesaler that sat me down like this and asked me these questions. This person is serious. So I will spend time with this person. I will pay attention to this person. The wholesalee interview is actually you, the wholesaler, selling yourself to Sarah and Kelly as a reasonable source for discount properties.
Andy, I just got to stop you here because, I've been listening to this business a long time and I never had this step. I think this is an awesome golden nugget tip. One, you've gone the extra mile when you're doing that. Of course, the investor wants to sit down and work with you. He wants to know that the person, like you said, they're lazy, A lot of people are lazy. His time is important. He doesn't want to be going through hundreds of shit properties. But I think the other thing to point out here is if you're a wholesaler and you don't have a strong buyers list, you're always, if you get a property, then you start freaking out. Oh crap, I gotta perform. Where's the money coming from? I gotta perform. What happened if I can't find any buyer? Blah, blah, blah. And it really is it gives you that sense of fear that it paralyzes a lot of people from moving on and scaling their business. So wholesaling becomes more, lucky charms, I guess, than anything else. But by this stuff, not only you're selling yourself to him, but you're reaffirming yourself that, this is an essential step. I have a strong buyer from me now. I'm going to go out and make a ton of offers. What is there to fear once you have the money? So that's a gem. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. And just to close this point before we move to the next step, everybody, I am a national speaker, and I'm also a member of my REIA, and I travel the country. Every month, hands down, 2 or 3 people approach me to wholesale for me. In my entire career, not one person has done this. This step is imperative. And we also will help you with role playing on how to conduct this interview and what to ask. We don't stop there, Duncan. This step 4 is kind of an extension of that. We've got a form, a wholesale process review that you will go over with your wholesalee and have him or her fill this out for you. This is going to put in writing what they're looking for, where they're looking for it, what discounts they're looking for, what they're willing to pay. And you've got this all in writing, documented. Again, if you are concerned that you can't find buyers, that's part of the hurdle. But the biggest issue is that a buyer take you seriously. These 2 steps will ensure that you're taken seriously, and then they'll spend time with you. The other thing it's doing for you is helping you organize your business. Coming back to step number 2, you've got to have multiple buyers for every type of property you're looking to buy, because it's possible that your investors could flake. So once you've got your buyers that they're filling out this form, you can put them in piles, or, okay, let's say you're not old school like me, you can put it online and say, okay, I've got 3 investors looking for properties in this part of town. I've got 4 investors looking for apartment buildings in these 4 counties. I've got 3 investors looking for lower end properties. I've got 2 investors looking for higher end properties. This will help you organize your buyers so that when you find the right type of property, you know who it matches up with. Step 5A, finding your first property and doing your first deal. Okay, now you've got the wholesale, you've got your buyer list. Okay, you've got your buyers together, you've done the interviews, they fill out the process review, You've got what you need, and you pick your acquisition model, and you go and you do your first deal. Fantastic. But what about you're talking to a bank? You're talking to a bank, but wait a second. The bank says no assignment. Oh my goodness. I'm a wholesaler. I am going to assign. This is clearly a roadblock. No, it's not. Let me explain. I travel all over the country, everybody. And our favorite way to buy is bank-owned property. And like I said earlier, roughly 30 to 40% of any room where I teach, even on an online forum like this, those in attendance are looking to wholesale. Many wholesalers believe they cannot buy properties from banks because very often banks' properties are offered without assignment. No assignment. What does a wholesaler do? A wholesaler assigns. Now, before I solve this dilemma for everybody, let me explain the reality of wholesaling. If you talk to a successful wholesaler, I'm talking about somebody who's been wholesaling for 5, 10, or 15 years, and he or she is running a real business where they're doing 10 or 15 deals a month. That wholesaler, that successful wholesaler, without a doubt, will tell you they're buying most of their properties from banks. So here we have what appears to be conflicting information. On one hand, we got banks offering properties with no assignment, yet most successful wholesalers are buying most of their properties from banks. Before I solve this, let me explain why this is nonsensical. Wholesaling, like I said at the start of the webinar, is a transaction-based business. So there's only one potential seller who has the ability to sell wholesalers multiple properties. It's banks. So of course, wholesalers have to buy from banks because their business is a numbers game. But again, we have this roadblock. Banks don't allow assignment. Well, the reason for that clause is actually, you're going to laugh at this. Banks don't have the time to educate rookie wholesalers. So they put that clause in there because rookie wholesalers are going to look at that and say, oh, I better not call ABC Bank because they don't allow assignment. And it's going to scare away all the investors who are really not serious, or not educated. It's not going to scare you away. Bank doesn't care what you do with the property. Again, it doesn't make any sense. Why would a bank have not allow assignment when they really don't care what happens? They just want to get the property off their books. So there's a number of ways to get around this if you're talking to a bank that says no assignment. One of the ways, we talk about this in our course, is, so let's go back to our example. I, Andy, am a wholesaler. I don't have any money. Sarah, she's got tons of money. She's my investor or wholesalee. I find a property, 123 First Street, from Bank ABC in Boston. All right? It fits the type of property that Sarah's looking to buy, but I don't know Bank ABC. This is the first time I'm talking to them. So it says no assignment. Okay? So I don't yet have a relationship with this bank. I can't ask them to remove that clause yet. So what do? I take a document from my course that lists the address of that property. I give it to Sarah. She signs it. It means she won't go around me. It protects my interests. if we are successfully buy that particular property. That gives me security. All right. Let's say I now negotiate with this bank and I get the property at $350,000. Sarah's told me, Andy, if you can buy that property, anything less than $375, I'll take it from you and I'll pay you $20,000. I got a contract offer at $350, but this bank says no assignment. Oh no, all the rookie wholesalers are going to run away, but you're not going to do this. You're going to pull a document from my course, which is a purchase contract. But this is a bit of a different purchase contract because it has two names on it, purchaser A and purchaser B. So I sign as Andy, purchaser A, and Sarah signs as purchaser B. Now, when there's two names on a contract, everybody, it doesn't mean that Andy's obligated for 50% and Sarah's obligated for 50%. It means we are co-obligated to buy that property at $350. I got no money. I've signed a second agreement, it's also in our course, that guarantees Sarah that if we get this property at the closing table, I will quit claim my interest in the property to her in exchange for $20,000. So back to the bank. The bank accepts the offer. We jointly buy it. And at closing, I back off on my 50% and Sarah gives me $20,000. What have I now not done, Boston? I have now not assigned the contract. Now, the relationship with the bank, who owns it? Not Sarah. It's you, me, the wholesaler. So the second time I find a property from the same bank, I call the guy up. By now, I've taken him out to lunch or I'm building a relationship. I say, hey, look, Susan, would you mind getting rid of that assignment clause? You know I'm good for it. Oh, sure, Andy, no problem. Boom, it's gone. That's it. You know that this is happening for wholesalers because most successful wholesalers are buying primarily from banks. Why? Because they're the only seller out there who has multiple properties. This is why wholesalers need to focus on bank-owned properties. You give me a successful wholesaler, they're buying primarily from banks. You wholesalers have to master buying from banks. Yes, you can buy with banded signs and some of the other ways like Duncan was mentioning earlier, but that's a lot of work, everybody. And again, your business is a transaction-based business. And for your business to be able to do 5 to 15 of these per month, you've got to be buying your properties from sellers who are able to sell you 2, 3, 4, 5 properties a month. The only seller that I'm aware of that can do that are banks. Step 6, expanding your profit sources. Okay, now you're going to laugh at me as I give you this final step. Stop wholesaling. All right? What do I mean by that? When you're buying property as an investor, the real money in real estate is when you take ownership of property and you're the one who flips it, or you're the one who lease purchases it, or you're the one who holds it long term. You give me a successful wholesaler, I will show you an investor who's only wholesaling a portion of their properties. What I recommend to all of you who are new to real estate, use wholesaling as a means to begin. It's fantastic. You don't need anything other than your smarts up here, time and effort, and a good wholesaling strategy. All right? But once you've done a few deals, put that money in the bank and don't touch it. Make a goal for yourself. Okay, I'm going to do 4 to 5 wholesale deals, but no more than 5, because on the 6th property, I'm going to keep that property in my own name. If I've got a credit issue, I'm going to use the cash I make from my wholesale deals to fix my credit. I'm not saying stop wholesaling if you've got a successful pipeline. What I'm saying to you is keep some of the properties in your name, because that's when you're not making 15 or 20,000, everybody. That's when you're making 200, 300, and 400,000. All right. Wholesaling is a fantastic way to start investing. But once you've had some success, put properties in your name. That way you're going to benefit from tax benefits that only occur when you hold on to properties. Cash flow benefits, appreciation. That's how you pay for retirement. All right. That's how you send kids to college. That's how you take vacations. The wholesaling
Gotta
money
agree
is,
with you on that one, Andy. I
yeah,
mean, I think you're hitting spot on advice here. Most people don't think past wholesaling. They think I mastered it. Let me just do that. But if you look at, you need to scale your business and make it work for you. And that's why holding property. I think you said that your number was 6. Wholesale 5, hold 6. By that time, you should have enough money to make a fix and do a fix and flip, and score bigger money. And then, if you don't flip it, lease option it out. So, that's ongoing income. So yeah, you really have to have a financial plan, strategy, I should say, in real estate. Start wholesaling, but now move on. Master that one strategy of wholesaling, but now learn 2, learn 3. So it becomes a business in your retirement deal. I think that's great advice you're giving people, just to look at it as a business rather than just extra cash.
yeah, and thank you, Duncan. And everybody, it is a business. Maybe even if you're concerned that you're not that you might spend the money, okay, set up 2 bank accounts. All right, you've got your cash account that you used to live off of. Then you got your real estate investing account. So let's say you make 20,000, put 10K in the cash account and put 10K in the real estate investing account. Next deal, you make 15, 7,500 in the cash account, 7,500 in the real estate investing account. And once you have enough money in the real estate investing account to buy a property and keep that ownership in your name, you do it. And like I said earlier, I think by that 5th or 6th property, you should have made enough money from the wholesaling to keep a property in your name. So I do have a great wholesaling course, everybody, and we put this together a number of years ago, and it sells for $11.95. Unless you are brand new to REIA climate, you're not going to pay $11.95. There'll be a nice discount, everybody. And again, a reminder before I give you the discount, questions, post them in the chat, because in about 5 minutes, you'll have an opportunity to ask me the questions, or Duncan and Sarah Kelly can read it, and I'll answer for everybody's benefit. If I could give you one testimonial before I'll tell you what the price that everybody will get. Donald is one of my students, got my course. His very first wholesale deal in the Bay Area, $15,000 profit. Who wouldn't mind that as your learning curve property? All right. And that was his first ever wholesale. All right. Bank owned property. All right. Wholesaling is easy, everybody. It's very easy as long as you have a good system. We've broken it down into 6 steps. We've covered the steps here for you today. Everything that we've covered and more is just $397. And we're giving you 2 options, Boston. One-time payment of $397, or just make 2 payments a month apart of $205. Just go to www.regularriches.com. Be sure to put in 2 R's /Boston. and you'll have both of these two options. We guarantee our product fully, give you a chance to go through it, make sure you're satisfied. Satisfied. You have an unconditional guarantee period. But ladies and gentlemen, wholesaling is not difficult. What this course does better than any course I've ever seen is we structure this as a business with 6 simple steps, including, as we talked about before, the wholesaling interview, the documents you need, the process review, the document that guarantees that the investor won't be able to go around you, the 2-person purchase contract. All of these documents are in this course for $397. That's it. This is basically what many people spend in coffee in a month, and give you a chance to wholesale. Duncan, I'm ready for questions. We can leave the screen up here. Just everybody go to www.regularriches.com. Be sure to put in the 2 R's /Boston. You've got 2 options, 1 payment at $397, 2 payments at $205. The system will go out to you tomorrow. It is digitized, got everything on a thumb drive. You can go through the whole system literally in 3 or 4 days. It's extremely simple. It makes the wholesaling business simple. Duncan?
Andy, just talk briefly about formulas. There's a couple different formulas floating around what should be considered a wholesale deal. And are there other formulas for working with banks?
Okay, so yeah, so the way it works when you buy from banks, everybody. So when I say we buy bank-owned property, let me tell you what we don't do. We don't call a bunch of properties on MLS that are bank-owned. No, because when you're doing that, everybody, you're competing with homeowners. All right, so what we teach, Duncan, is how to, so let's say once a property forecloses, everybody, depending on the part of the country you're in, that foreclosed property will not be on MLS between 4 and 6 months. So we teach investors how to approach banks in that 4 to 6 month window. So there's even a nickname for this, Duncan. It's called a pocket listing. It's not really a listing. It's in your back pocket. Now, a couple tips there. All right. This works. You can contact the banks directly on the smaller banks, which includes local banks, includes regional banks, includes credit unions. And which part of the country has a lot of smaller lenders? New England. All right. Now, for the larger banks, like the Bank of Americas, the Wells Fargo, the Deutsche Banks, all right, they're very structured with how they bring their properties to market, Duncan. In every metropolitan community around the country, the larger banks have typically 2 or 3 real estate agents or brokers that are going to get their listings. So, for example, if I am an REO manager for Wells Fargo and I'm in charge of the REOs in the Northeast, I probably got a couple of names. It could be somebody like a Sarah Abraham that is automatically going to get my listings in the New England area. I'm not just going to open up the phone book and say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who's getting this property? No. There are specific brokers or agents in every large metropolitan community that are going to get the listings of the larger banks. So again, if you know who these agents are and you see that they've got a foreclosure, you approach them and you give them an offer days after the foreclosure sale, sometimes months before the property is supposed to be listed on MLS. And Sarah will tell you this, and any agent will tell you, every written offer has to be presented to the seller. So the beauty about this, everybody, it doesn't have to work all the time, but it works a lot. It's easier. And once you have that relationship with the REO agent or the bank, you can buy additional properties from them, which again is essential for a wholesaling business. Great point, Duncan. Again, reminding anybody, if you have a question for me, until Duncan says we're done, I can take questions. I'm happy to do this. Go to www.regularriches.com/Boston. $397, one payment, even split up two payments over a month, and you'll get the course.
Awesome. Andy, I got a couple things for you, but one for me right now is approaching the bank. Does the bank, are they obligated still to have you talk to an agent, or are those offers, can you make directly without an agent? Because I'm thinking it will save them money not to work with an agent.
Sure. Well, the answer is any and all things can happen. All right. You may be calling a bank, and this bank says, yeah, I'll talk to you, Duncan. Okay, here I put a key under the mat. Go and get me your offer. Fantastic. Then the next bank you're talking to says, great, I have no problem entertaining a quick sale offer, but I don't have the capacity to talk to you. The agent that's going to get the listing is Sarah. Contact Sarah, but I'll be happy to consider a quick sale offer. So both scenarios can occur, and it's fine. Many of these banks we talk to, they work with us directly. Keep in mind something very important. The smaller banks, some of them might have a dozen, 2 dozen foreclosures a year. That's it. So they may not have an REO manager. You may be talking to the VP of mortgage. You may be talking to the president. You may be talking to the vice president. All right. But the beauty is these smaller banks that have foreclosures, most of them don't have an existing structure, and they'll do whatever as long as it makes sense to them to talk to you. And if this is a bank, think about it for a second, guys. If this is a bank that only gets 24 foreclosures per year, and you work with them on 1 or 2 properties, you successfully take these properties off their books pretty quick, you're easy to work with, you're professional, you could become their investor whenever that bank, okay, yeah, I can fix it up. I can go find a contractor. I can go find an agent. I can wait 4 or 6 months, or I can call 1-800-KELLY. It's an easy one, right, guys? The bank will call 1-800-KELLY. The beauty about this, what I'm trying to say, everybody, is these small and mid-sized banks are fantastic sources. And if they say to you, I only have a dozen of these a month, a year, that's fantastic. Tell me an investor that wouldn't like to find one source where they can buy literally a property every single month. So these smaller banks can be very, very appealing for wholesalers and investors, because once you've established that contact, you buy from them over and over again.
Okay, so a couple questions here. The first from Monica Lorenzo is a 2-part question. Firstly, the houses that are bank owned, can we make an inspection there before we go buy them?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. Thank you for asking that, Monica. One of the reasons why I love to teach so much is how misunderstood buying bank-owned properties are. We've talked about a big misunderstanding already, that many wholesalers think they can't buy bank-owned because of this assignment provision, which is absolutely incorrect. Probably the second biggest misunderstanding is what you just touched on, Monica. So I'm going to answer your question with a great story. So one of the first times I taught, a very seasoned investor, guy did lots of deals, comes up to me in the back of the room and he says, Andy, I really enjoyed your seminar, but I'm really risk averse. I'm pretty conservative. I don't buy bank-owned properties because they're sold as is. I like to get all my properties inspected. The guy was pretty smart. Yeah, yeah, you don't buy properties unless you can get them inspected. But he didn't understand when a bank sells a property as is, he misunderstood what that meant. Didn't mean he couldn't get it inspected. I've been buying properties since 1990. Every single property I've ever bought, but one, this is an odd story, I've had the right to get it inspected. When a bank is selling a property as is, it doesn't mean you can't get it inspected. If you go into our purchase contract that's in our wholesale course, the right to get the property inspected is in that contract. So they have to give you that right. But when a bank sells a property as is, Sarah, you're an agent, right? What does every one of your clients have to produce? A 7 or 8 page seller's disclosure. But a bank can't do that because they haven't lived in the property. So when a bank sells a property as is, it doesn't mean you can't get it inspected, Boston. It means you're agreeing to buy the property without a seller's disclosure. So the answer to your question, Miss Monica, is a resounding yes. You can get the property inspected. And if you use the purchase contract that's in our wholesaling course and they sign it, they have to give you that right.
Awesome. So the second part of her question then becomes a little bit easier is then how, if no, how can we run the numbers to assess the deal? So I guess in a way you've answered that, but then it gets back to just running the numbers and what you recommend.
Yeah. So again, part of this, so like in what you should be doing if you're wholesaling is you should be establishing with your buyers what constitutes a deal to them. Because what are you doing as a wholesaler? You're not buying for yourself. You're buying for Sarah. You're buying for Kelly. So part of your interview process is going to be, Sarah, what types of deals are you looking for? Sarah might say, you don't show me you can get the property 20% below market, I will not be interested. So I know I got to be acquiring the property for 20% below market because if I want Sarah to buy it. Now I interviewed Kelly. Kelly's strategy is different. Her answer is, well, you know, Andy, I do like my discounts for sure, but my strategy is to hold long term. I care less about the discount. I care about the school systems. You give me properties in communities with A-rated school, I'll buy it. As long as you get me 5 or 10%, I'll buy it. So the answer to your question is realize when you interview your potential buyers. Now, this is different if you're buying for yourself. If you're buying for yourself, you got to determine based on what your exit strategy is, what your buyer discount you're looking for. But you're not buying for yourself as a wholesaler. You're buying for a Sarah, you're buying for a Kelly, you're buying for a Duncan. And one of the questions you have to ask them in your wholesaling interview is, tell me what a deal looks like to you so I know what to look for. So this is, again, part of what our course does, everybody. Many people start as wholesale. Well, I'm just going to go out and find properties, then I'll look for a buyer. That's backwards. You got to find your buyers first so you know what type of properties checks their boxes. And you buy those properties, you get, and they should be there to buy them because they gave you their commitment in advance.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, you know, I just want to make a plug for the REIA here. And where you're going to find buyers quickly is within your Real Estate Investors Association network. So that's a plug for the REIA. So, Andy, I want to speak to you about the document. Let's say we run into the issue of the agent says we have to use our state contract and not your document. What do we do?
Well, the answer is I don't come in, I don't come across that a lot.
Mhm.
And I don't believe in worrying about things that are unlikely to occur. But let's say it happens. I have no trouble, and I've done this dozens of times, utilizing the contract that's preferred by a real estate agent if I'm buying through a bank's REO agent. But
Mhm.
and if you take their purchase contract with mine, it's going to be 90% the same.
Mhm.
The key is I might have 3 or 4 provisions that give you extra protection that are not in the real estate agent's contract. And this is why it's important, no matter what course you get, everybody, to understand these important provisions and the protections it gives you. And then you just take that contract, Duncan, and you write that in. Happens all the time. So the
Okay.
answer is I have no problem ever, and I've never had a problem using the contract of a real estate agent that was preferred by a bank. And typically when that happens, I either am fine with the contract as is, or I'll write 2 or 3 lines that give me additional protection that is in my contract, but not in theirs.
Okay. So out of curiosity, when you say you write those in, you write them in as an addendum or you're writing on the actual contract?
I write them in as addendum.
Okay.
Yeah,
Super. Because
and I've
in
never had,
effect, the addendum supersedes everything
yeah,
in reality.
yeah, and I've never had any situation where that kept me from getting a property.
Awesome. So Deborah just asked quickly, could you display the first slide, which lists the 7 steps?
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So while you're
everybody
finding
write
that,
down, yeah, sure. Everybody write down www.regularriches.com/Boston. Let me give you your 7 steps, Deborah, then I'll come right back here.
yep, we can look at it quickly. We'll ask you the next question. And then there's from Monica Lorenzo. How can we reach out to the right person in the bank to negotiate the properties? You did mention before that, some banks don't have an REO asset manager or some,
Yeah. Well, you're gonna laugh at my answer, but the answer is the way what you should do. What you don't want to do is call and say, who is in charge of REOs? And because this is you may be speaking to a receptionist who doesn't know what that means. You make your questions, and let me go back to the final slide again. You make your questions very general, everybody. Who at this bank is in charge of foreclosures? Yep. And one thing I will say is sometimes you may have to call back 2 or 3 times. I make a joke in my webinars. In my one seminar I did a few months ago, I told about a call I made to I invest in the South, Duncan, and somebody said, "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't do foreclosures at this bank." And then I said to everybody, and then I said, "Will you please give me somebody smarter than you?" I didn't say that, of course. I would never be rude. But it's a joke to make a point, everybody. Sometimes you might have to call back a second or third time to get the right person on the phone. Now, one of our secrets, it's not in the wholesale course because course is about a wholesale business. All right. But one of the secrets of our strategy on REOs is we go through the list of pre-foreclosures and pick out about 20, 25 properties every month that are likely to go back to the bank. And that's how we call the banks right after the sale, because we identified the property weeks earlier. The secret to buying properties from banks is 2 things, guys. One is timing. If you're calling the bank right after the foreclosure sale, the bank has not begun their marketing process. So it'll be easy for you to present yourself as an alternative. You're not saying to the bank, "Hey, I'm Sarah. I got this great course, so don't market the property, sell to me." No. what the bank, what you're really saying to the bank is, I'm an option. Give me a week. Don't change your plans with the property. Give me a week. Let me get a quick sale offer in front of you. If you like it, great. You don't have to go through all the rehab and find an agent and blah, 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 blah. And you get this property off your books in 30 days at the latest. If you don't like my offer, just market the property like you're going to do it anyhow. So the first issue is timing. And the second is what to say to the banks when you make your approach. And that's one of the things that we teach in our REO course is what to say on the phone. But I'll say to you guys, it's not difficult. I started this in my 20s. With a few of these phone calls, you'll figure it out. It's really easy.
Awesome. So let me just go through it. But while we're going through the questions, I just want to make note that I have uploaded the book that Annie promised you at the beginning of the meeting now into the chat. It is not a link, it is the actual book. So you have to press the little download arrow. And it's only 2.31 meg, so it's not going to take a very long time. Just remember where you download it to. Getting a lot of thank yous, thank you, Andy. Good content. Next question is from Yves Simon. Do you need them to see? Let me see. Get this one. Do you need the same requirements such as income, down payment, credit as the regular buyer to buy REO owned bank properties?
Yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions buying from banks is that you need a lot of cash. I'm living proof that that's false. I mean, when I was a young, every single one of our offers had a loan contingency. All right. When you're buying from banks, it's actually no different than buying properties any other way. All the bank cares about is that you can close. So if you're a wholesaler, what they're going to care about is that you've done your homework, like we talk about in this course, and you've already got your buyers lined up. Remember the plural, the S, buyers plural, so that if one of your buyers flakes, you're still going to close. Here's what you want the banks to look at you as, everybody. So let's say I, Andy, am a wholesaler. I don't have any money. And I've got 3 buyers lined up who are interested in middle income properties in Greater Boston. Sarah, Duncan, and Kelly. So I buy a property from Bank ABC. Sarah says, sorry, I'm off the market this month. Duncan says, I'm off the market this month. Kelly says, I'll take it. Great. The next property, 2 months later, I get another property. Sarah takes it. The third property, I get it. Sarah says, I'm off the market. I just took one, but Duncan takes it. The fourth property, Kelly takes it. You see where I'm going with this? The bank will look at Andy as the guy, oh, anytime Andy's name is on a property, I've got one less problem to worry about. He's a closer. Even though I got no money. I've just lined myself up with responsible buyers, and I have a backup, and I have a backup for my backup. So I'm building a reputation with that bank. And remember my 6th step, keeping property in my name. Because after a year or 2 years of this, on my 6th property, I'm not going to call Sarah, and I'm not going to call Duncan, and I'm not going to call Kelly. Not because I don't like them. They're great. I'm not going to call them because I'm greedy. It's time for me to make 200,000, not 20. And I'm going to keep this next property in my name. All right. Oh, my bank account just came down low. So property number 7, 8, and 9, I'm going to wholesale again. But guess what? Property number 10, I'm going to keep that one in my own name. Oh, I'm now my bank account's low again. Low again. Property 11, 12, and 13, I'm going to wholesale. But property 14, I'm going to keep in my own name. And after a few years, guess what? I'm not wholesaling a lot anymore. I'm keeping most of the properties in my own name because that's where the real money is. But thank goodness I got my start as a wholesaler. And one more point about buying from banks. I'll remind you, I said this earlier, but you own the relationship, the wholesaler, not the wholesalee. You'll be building that relationship with the property source, not the wholesalee. So if you decide down the road to stop wholesaling and keeping properties in your name, all you do is you cut off, you stop calling Sarah, you stop calling Kelly, you stop calling Duncan because you own the relationship with the bank.
I do want to interject when speak about relationships because I found it easier to start with those smaller local regional state banks than calling up, Wells Fargo. It's much easier to reach those people, and then you can go in and bite them out for that cup of coffee too. Hey,
Yeah.
So
Let me just clarify something. You're 100% right, Duncan. When I say with the larger banks, you're not calling the larger banks because you won't have success. But you will learn which of the real estate agents that have the relationship with the larger banks. So, for example, if I see a foreclosure, 17 Fifth Street from Wells Fargo, and I know that Sarah is the REO agent for Wells Fargo, I'm not going to call Wells Fargo. I'm going to call immediately Sarah.
spot on. So a couple thank yous and more great content, Andy. So Justin S. Hey, Anthony, oh wait, that was a networking thing here. Says Anthony. I am Anthony Maggio with Blue Legacy REI, and for 2024, I'm focused on wholesaling in order to bolster my cash position and my network. I'm participating weekly in deed auctions in Florida using a proven system, puts me in a good position. He's also looking for cash buyers if anybody's in Florida. But I'm working to find properties in Manhattan and New Hampshire with attention to those who have tax liens on their property. That's another way to do tax liens, is another way to find wholesale deals. They don't do them all year round. And I think tax liens, I'm seeing with tax liens, a lot of major corporations buy these things up, and then you still have a right of redemption, et cetera. So you can get deals with tax liens. I think it's more for really interest earning what you're putting in. But Andy, do you have any comment about tax liens as
Yeah.
a wholesaling acquisition strategy?
Yeah, it's actually one of the 10
Mhm.
on that free product. I am not okay, just to be real clear, I am not as familiar with tax lien investing. Um, and I don't find a lot of tax lien investors that use it as a source for wholesaling. But because it's out in my area of expertise, I'm not able to say why. It is a good strategy, but I don't typically find it as a source for wholesaling.
Yeah, I would say for a beginner, you're going to need money for tax liens.
Yeah.
You're not getting into a tax lien property with no money.
Yeah.
Um, most certainly anybody could go to your county records and see who owns those taxes. I think there's more opportunity for somebody to do a runaround on you if you're trying to wholesale a tax lien property. Um, I think tax liens are great, especially you're going to earn interest in buying that tax lien. But for me, when I started out, funnily enough, I did more lease options than I did wholesaling when I began, but it was still the acquisition strategies that went into play. So I would say probably 80% of people brand new will start out in wholesaling. And even with that 80% of investors going into it, you have the 80-20 rule that only 20% are successful because they're not doing the steps, they're doing it wrong, they're saying the same things, they're not doing their numbers
Yeah.
correctly.
Yep.
So it's simple, but it's not. Um, it's simple once you know what to do and implement a system. So, I know there's YouTube videos out there with people stuff. I know that I just watched one today. I was in, shock. I just, he was just his way of getting wholesale deals was just putting out 1,000 pre-written offers, by using automation. I'm like, man, you're pissing a lot of realtors off doing that stuff, and it's a lot of work and stuff. So, yeah, I lean more now toward going the old school way of that relationship. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's going to help you tremendously in working in those smaller, yeah, especially in town. You're going to know your agents. If you're working with the banks, you're going to know these people. Um, I mean, in my world, in my bubble, I think that just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's a great way for me to kind of do a wrap there. It's the reason why I buy from banks, everybody, why it's my favorite way is because it's based on a relationship that you'll form and you can buy from them over and over again. My biggest advice to all of you who want to wholesaling, if you structure the business the way we teach, it's not difficult, guys. And the beauty about it is most of those who are trying to wholesale, they're going backwards. They're going out and finding properties that they haven't got a potential buyer yet. They even know if their buyer is real.
Hmm.
You're not going to you're not going to organize your business that way.
Yeah.
This course gives you the steps and gives you the documentation you'll need to build and organize a successful wholesale business. It gives you a way to be taken seriously if you're a kid and you haven't bought your first deal yet. It's
Yeah.
not about your age, everybody. It's about what you say when you meet an investor so he or she thinks you can make them money. And
So, Andy, let me ask you one question. Just, yeah, again, this is my question now coming through because I see it a lot. Other people are shopping other people's wholesale deals. Um, oh yeah, so a wholesaler gets in a panic, he can't find a buyer, and somebody says, "Well, Jay, we'd be with you. I have a buyer," and then that person goes to another person and says, "Oh, I don't have a buyer, but I have a buyer." Your thoughts on that? How to avoid that?
well, to be honest, get my course. That's one
Yeah,
thing, everybody. But listen to you, Duncan, listen to you lay it out. Honestly, I had a headache thinking about that. I go get a
yeah,
buyer, I go get a property, I don't, and my buyer finds a buyer who finds a buyer. Guys, if it sounds like that, it's just not going to work.
yeah,
No, I mean the if you can't structure your wholesale, your plan to wholesale where it sounds simple, it can be explained simply, you're probably not going to have success. And the best comment I have with your question, which I think was an excellent question, is, ladies and gentlemen, don't ever put yourself in that situation. It's
yes,
about
hallelujah.
preparation. It's about preparation. If you've got multiple buyers for individual properties, this scenario that Duncan laid out will not be ever be your reality. And that's one way to be successful.
100%. You got to be your master of your own destiny. When you're out of control and you don't know where the deal is and you just have an address and trying to shop around, you can't. You
Yeah.
really seriously can't take that and work that deal. So, from my point of view, is stay out of that nonsense. Find your own deals. Andy, you said it so nicely. If you can't explain it in a sentence, then you're not doing it right. Um,
Yeah. It's like
because
one
when
of
you
my
meet
jokes.
people,
If I
they
ask
want to know what you
somebody,
do, and this is exactly
yeah,
what I do.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. But Boston, look, I've known Duncan for years. I've taught to your group a number of times. Um, this is a great course, and the timing where the real estate market is going is going to be the perfect time to start wholesaling. Uh, the system we sell it online. We just sold one the other day online at the full price. Ladies and gentlemen, it's $397 or two payments of 205. I mean, that's what many people spend in coffee in a year. Okay. You cannot get it at this price anywhere other than today through Boston REIA. So please go to www.regularriches.com/Boston. The thumb drive will go out to you tomorrow, and you should have it within 2 to 3 business days.
Awesome. So Andy, I think that's about it for tonight. I do want to just remind people I have uploaded the book at different areas of the questionnaire. So you should be able to find it. It had 3 green lights to go. The link is in the chat. Also, I'm going to put it in one more time because the first time I put it in ever years ago, I forgot the 2 R's. So this time I typed 2 R's and it goes right to the link with the discount that Andy's giving you. So no excuses, guys. Andy gave you a lot of information tonight. He's giving wow, lots of thanks coming in, Andy. Thank you. Great content.
Thank you.
So there are things you still need to know. Let's do it right the first time, then trying to figure it out just from watching, the training tonight. Join your REIA is a great way to network and list your properties online. So make sure you text Kelly 864-906-4111. And again, I want to thank Sarah for her efforts today in both presenting Home Depot and the market update. So you already have one realtor that presented herself here on the screen that can also help you out with that. So, you got to start talking to people, and tell them what you're doing. And with that, I just want to make one quick announcement that in July, since our first Thursday falls on the 4th this year, we will not be having a meeting in July. So you have a great 4th of July weekend. We'll be back in August with more super training. We will be sending, the newsletters out and all that other stuff, but our general meeting will not be. The other meetings will still continue. So Andy, again, thank you very much. Awesome stuff. Everybody absolutely loved
Duncan,
it.
Duncan,
Yes.
sorry. Two things. Everybody remember to copy and paste
Oh,
the
copy and
entire
paste.
chat. That way you
Mhm.
have all that information, all those contacts, all that. That's super helpful. And print it out. And this is how we network virtually. And then
Yep.
secondly, Duncan, it looks like we do have one more question.
Can you read it? I can't see it.
Let me get my readers on.
I think that was.
Looks
Oh,
like, oh, Monica, Miss
oh,
Monica asked
Monica. Okay.
if we buy it next week, will we get the discount as well? Monica, you are a member with us? Absolutely.
There you go. Right. I was going to say right from Kelly's mouth. I'm not going to say the horse's mouth. Right from Kelly's mouth to you. You can still get but don't wait longer than a week because you want to get started. The sooner the better. I mean, we are on the cutting edge of seeing things happen in the real estate market. So get first in line. That's what I'm saying. Make yourself ready to move because the stuff is afoot. And be prepared, the Boy Scout and Girl Scout, I think it was this plan. So once again, Andy, thank you very much. I'm out of here. I'm going to press the end button. Make sure you copy and paste one last time. Thank you and see you in August.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Andy. Good to see you again.
Bye-bye, Kelly.